Stop, you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now, we have new stories every day. Now let's go. She broke away from her dance partner and joined me, having fun. I asked, handing her a glass of red wine. Not really, it's more for business than pleasure. What, dancing with a group of handsome men? Nice job if you can get it. That elderly guy in the gray suit will probably want to pinch you soon, I said, nodding toward a man nearby. He's been staring at you for about 20 minutes. Step over to that corner for a minute, Marty, and, for heaven's sake, smile. You're embarrassing. Me? I'm embarrassing you? That's rich, she replied. We stood at one end of the bar, where it was quiet. She smiled at me, and since people could see us, I played along and smiled back. Listen closely, Peter, I work in sales. My base salary is good, but the commissions are even better. I'm good at what I do, and this year I closed 3 of the company's biggest deals. This party is in honor of my latest success. At the end of this month, 50% of my commissions will be transferred to the bank. The rest will go toward my Christmas bonus. I know all that, and there's something else you should know. The bonus I'm getting will pay for your dream vacation next year, a drive down the Pacific coast, Big Sur, Monterey, whale watching. I've earned enough to even rent a Mustang convertible for 3 weeks. I know that too. That's my reward for being dragged to this boring party and having to watch my girlfriend flirt with a group of guys while some old pervert undresses you with his eyes. It's infuriating. Well, here's something else you obviously don't know. There were 2 managers who signed contracts this week, not a group. I had only 2 dances with each of them, as expected. They didn't touch me, act inappropriately, or even dance cheek to cheek. Okay, I'm sorry, I said. And the elderly guy watching me? He's the CEO of the company. His name is Gavin, and yes, he does watch me. He's a stickler for the company's moral standards. A hand on my back for longer than a second, and I'll be in his office getting a yellow card on Monday. Good Lord, he even checks how long we spend on lunch, and we are never allowed to have business lunches at a hotel, just in case there's temptation. So maybe lighten up. Fair enough, I will. But you understand that doesn't stop him from being attracted to you. If I wanted to have the last word, I failed. Yes, that's true. He's gay. We rejoined the crowd. I'm not much for parties, but I compensated by dancing with Yuna, chatting with managers and Gavin, and smiling a lot. Possibly, I also ate and drank too much, but she seemed pleased. The sex when we got back home was fantastic. I don't know if she was pleased because she put me in my place or because of the big contract. I didn't really care either. Our sex life is pretty turbulent. We've both been married before. I had 2 kids with my ex, then she convinced me to get a vasectomy. A year later, she asked for a no-fault divorce. Thanks. She immediately hooked up with an American and moved with my sons to San Diego. There was nothing I could do about it, but at least I didn't have to pay alimony. Chuck is wealthy. Probably that influenced my interest in the U.S. West Coast. In the last 2 years, I've only managed to see my boys once. Luna had previously been married to a man who was insanely jealous and practically kept her under lock and key. Then, during a medical examination, she was diagnosed with an STD. When her husband was informed, he confessed to having an affair. In turn, he told the woman he was involved with, and her husband quickly beat up Luna's former spouse. Luna filed for divorce on the grounds of his infidelity, but he died before the case was heard. Rumors circulated that the cause of his assault was the beating, but nothing could be proven. There was no life insurance, only debts. All this made her sensitive to jealousy, which is why I upset her at the party. So, after getting married, we settled into our small rented apartment. The plan was to restore our financial situation and get married when we could afford to buy an apartment. Fortunately, Yuna is not interested in having children. Her bonus and sales performance entitle her to an additional week of vacation next summer when business is slow. She is more than happy that my children will join us on our trip along the Pacific Coast Highway. My ex also agrees. The next day, on Saturday, Luna told me more stories about her boss. He lives discreetly with a male partner. They are not married and never show affection publicly. He often sends clerks to restaurants to check whom sales representatives are buying dinner for. When they travel for business, it is believed that he pays various hotel employees to keep track of who is in which room, whether they have visitors, and so on. Only on Sunday morning did I realize that I hadn't gone to the bathroom the day before. Usually, I go quite regularly, and I suspect that something I ate at the party might have disrupted my natural rhythms. By Sunday evening, I had a stomachache. I often stayed late at work. There was a serious malfunction in the computer system. It took me 6 months to get to the bottom of the issue. The initial error occurred a year ago and had been growing like a snowball. I maintained constant communication with our branch in San Francisco, which was working with a parallel system. Hence, my growing fascination with their stories about the Pacific Coast Highway, which I had seen in many movies. They tended to be sarcastic because our British system often malfunctioned while their system was flawless. However, the end of the problem was not far off, so I had no choice but to go to work on Monday with a stomach ache. Luna and I live in an old house with a terrace. The rent is not high, and it was all we could afford when we first met. The house has a tiny hallway from which you can immediately go upstairs to 2 bedrooms or into a living room combined with a kitchen. Between them, there is a small bar where a huge potted plant stands. We rarely host guests. The door at the back of the kitchen leads to a rather unusual hall. It is a square with each side about a meter long, with doors on all 4 sides. One door naturally leads back to the kitchen. The next opens to a space with shelves where the water heater is located. My mother always called it a utility closet. Then there's a door to the bathroom, which is attached to the back of the house. It seems like an afterthought, dating back to when people bathed in the kitchen sink and the toilet was at the end of the garden. There is now a small shed there, where an old bathtub still hangs. Finally, on the side of the house, there is a back door that opens to a wall between us and the neighboring house. To the left, on the way to the enclosed garden, you pass by our bathroom. When I got home on Monday, my stomach was still hurting, but Luna hadn't mentioned that anyone else had suffered after the party. I skipped lunch and dinner, and in the evening, I finally managed to relieve myself. You know those sessions where you just keep wiping and wiping after using half a roll of toilet paper. I finished and flushed for the last time, but not everything went down. I waited and tried again, but the toilet dangerously filled up. I thought its murky contents would spill onto the floor. Time to use the plunger. Like most people, I disliked this task, but I wanted to clear the toilet before Yuna left. A few vigorous plunges resolved the clog, and everything was fine. There was an old shower overhead, and its head reached the toilet. A minute of hot water helped me clean the bowl and rinse the plunger. I washed my hands and went to make myself a sandwich. I was starving. By Tuesday, my routine was back to normal. Shower and shave, as my old grandpa used to say, and my workday was triumphant. We tested the system, and it finally worked flawlessly in all company departments. Computer functions became faster and faster. My boss, Cliff, was thrilled and muttered something incoherent about a bonus. Of course, I would have preferred a promotion, and with that goal in mind, I trained an assistant, Eric, during work. Now, he is nearly as good as me at identifying and fixing faults. That evening, I invited Yuma to dinner, but I did not mention my success at work. I thought it better to wait and see if any additional money would come through. When we got home, we settled in front of the television just in time for a bathroom break, she said as the opening credits rolled. Yuna is one of those people who like to announce their bodily functions. It's a fairly standard way for her to start a conversation. She returned as the movie began. "Sorry, Pete, the toilet is clogged, and you're the man with the plunger. Could you take care of that, please? Of course, I'll go during the first commercial break, but I feel uncomfortable just leaving it like this. Please." So, I went and once again did my duty in the bathroom. It took several plunges, 3 flushes, and a quick shower. On Friday morning, it clogged again, and I called our landlord from work. "Listen, Peter, it's covered by your lease agreement, but I'm swamped right now and can't make it until the end of next week. How do you feel about handling it yourself? I'm not about to crawl through the sewer, Lynn. You don't need to. I saw what caused it last time. It's not very pleasant, but it's not complicated. Go on. There is a square inspection hatch behind your back door. It serves both your and the neighboring door. It runs under the dividing wall. Your toilet flushes into a sewage pipe that goes straight to this entrance. Under the lid, at the end of each pipe, there is a small concrete shelf. That's usually where the blockage accumulates. It's surprising how close to the surface it is in these old houses. Whatever you flushed passes just a few centimeters under the pathway. All right, I'll give it a try. Thanks. Let me know how it goes. By the way, there's a long metal pole hidden behind your water heater in the cupboard. It's used to lift the lid, and it can also scrape out the blockage. The work project was completed, and for once, I got up early and found the pole standing at the back door. The square hatch came off easily. It revealed exactly what Lynn described. To the left of the square opening, there was a round pipe heading straight into the depths of the sewage system. It formed a curved shelf on the top and left, where the drains from my apartment and the neighbors flow. You always imagine that drains and sewage pipes are much deeper than they are. Here, the neighbor's side was clean, but mine was clogged. As repulsive as the sight was, I felt it was my duty to go for my phone and take a couple of photos for posterity. It only took a few scrapes, and the mess hastily burst out. In the bathroom, I flushed the toilet and stepped outside again to see it flow freely. Then I filled a bucket with hot water from the shower and added half a bottle of bleach. I cleaned the pole and wrapped its end in a plastic bag. It could stay outside overnight to dry. I poured the remaining contents of the bucket directly into the toilet, flushing away the last culprits. I felt like a hero and took a shower. That same Friday evening, as we were finishing dinner, my mobile rang. Cliff was still at work and panicking. I shoved the last piece of chicken between 2 slices of bread, thinking that this was how the Earl of Sandwich got started. Then, I kissed Una and went back inside. It was daytime in San Francisco, and their system had malfunctioned. Eric and a few others were on the phone with America, explaining the procedure step by step. Cliff led me into his office. The problem is exactly the same as the one we just solved here. All right, Peter, you and Eric figured it out. What are the consequences of the downtime? How did you resolve the issue here? I launched a parallel system so that I could work on the original while the office continued to operate. It wasn't ideal because I had to stop the repair work to handle the inevitable office disruptions 8 to 10 times a day, although it reduced to 2 or 3 as we neared the finish line. Can the Americans fix it faster now that we know what caused the issue? No, I always knew the cause. I had to repair everything in segments, essentially working in reverse. It took 6 months, and that's with a lot of overtime. Then to the point, Peter, what's the best way to bring America to the state we've just achieved? And I mean the internal work without external contractors. You'll need paper and a pen, I replied. He got them out. Promote me to manager with a corresponding salary increase plus a reasonable overseas allowance. Send me to San Francisco, and I guarantee that I will replicate what I achieved here. But I'm not going to wear myself out again, working all hours. Tell them I will assist them day by day, but a full fix will take a year. During this time, I can keep them operational and address issues as they arise. I expect to be able to choose my own hours. They can expect me to take a few Friday and Monday lunch breaks, and I still want to take full vacation time. I suspected it might be something like this. What else? I want them to provide me with a car and a 3-bedroom apartment close to the workplace. 2 competent assistants could reduce the project to 9 to 10 months. I can finance your salary increase and arrange the trip, and I'm sure they can find 2 assistants and provide you with at least a car. But short weeks and 3 bedrooms, they won't like that. You're the boss. You need to tell them this is how it has to be. It can be done faster if they bring in experts, but it will cost them much more than my proposal. It's not about me speeding up and down the Pacific Coast Highway. It's about spending time with my boys. Let me know on Monday how things stand. I don't think I've ever been so assertive with Cliff, but I was confident I would get what I wanted. I was in the spotlight. They could complete the job in 2 months if they were willing to throw a lot of money at the problem and endure at least a week of downtime, but my demands would be cheaper. If they couldn't meet them, perhaps I'd leave and try my luck elsewhere. Cliff should know this. When I returned home, Luna was in a playful mood, but I wasn't. I deliberately gave her a vague explanation about problems at work. She was never interested in technical matters. Over the weekend, I also put off sex, citing that my stomach was acting up again. On Monday morning, she looked particularly sexy. You look very glamorous. Another party. Hardly. I need to close another deal. 2 guys from Italy are coming. If I handle this, I'll be the unrivaled salesperson of the year. Rob, my closest competitor, was supposed to handle it, but I told the CEO I wasn't happy it would go to him because I know a little Italian. He said he was trying to level the playing field. That doesn't sound very businesslike. It's not a game. That's what I said. Anyway, poor old Rob sprained his ankle. Gavin called me yesterday and doesn't want these guys being greeted by someone in a cast. He called the Italians, and they expect to be met at the airport by his top saleswoman. I'm happy for you. Will they sign the contract today? No, they arrive at noon, and I'll take them to the office to meet Gavin and review our terms. From there, we'll head straight to dinner at their hotel. Gavin, of course, will be there to make sure I don't sneak into their rooms. Then they'll have an early night, and I'll be home by 9. And he won't be making sure you don't go back and visit them. Most likely, he'll have someone at the hotel to keep an eye on them. As for me sneaking back into the hotel, you'll need to make sure I stay home. I can do that. I hope that didn't mean she would want sex. I'd need to come up with an excuse. My main meeting is tomorrow at their hotel, not in their rooms, of course. Gavin has booked one of their public conference rooms. I'll be presenting all alone, can buy them lunch, and take as much time as needed. Surely, someone from the staff will check on us every 10 minutes, coming in with coffee and cookies. I'll probably come home early tomorrow afternoon while the Italians are discussing it. The next day, our American colleagues agreed to everything I wanted. An apartment and a car, though not a Mustang, were already arranged. Cliff booked me a flight for Wednesday morning. He also agreed to pay for shipping a couple of boxes of my personal items. The weather in California was practically unchanging. I hoped it would stay that way. Take tomorrow off, Peter. Just call on Wednesday before you head to the airport to confirm everything is going according to plan. What does Una say about this? I made it clear that you would have to cover all her expenses. She'll stay here. She makes too much money to leave. Well, good luck to you. He stood up and we shook hands. I wondered if I would ever see him again. I was about to spend a year on the edge of Silicon Valley. My skills could be useful there. I had a feeling Cliff suspected something of the sort. The rest of the day went by, clearing my desk and saying goodbye. I got home early, packed all my belongings, and sent them on their way. On Wednesday, I wouldn't need a suitcase to check in. Carry-on would suffice. I called Lynn, confirmed that I had just paid for 3 months' rent, and informed him that this was my notice of moving out. I wasn't going to miss it. He should contact Una directly to arrange the final inspection. Oh, and I resolved the blockage issue. Luna and I have separate closets, so she didn't notice that evening that I had packed all my personal belongings. I told her that I had been to the doctor during the day to check on my stomach issues. He ran some tests and thought I might have an ulcer. No sex tonight, babe. The medication he gave me is making me nauseous. If it's an ulcer, it's because of all that overtime you've been doing. You need to cut back on work. Don't worry. From now on, I'm going to take it much easier. As our American cousins would say, chill out. On Tuesday morning, Luna was all dressed up again and visibly excited. I hugged her tightly. Go get them, babe. Dazzle those Italian stallions with your charm. Thank you. Well, I need to leave early, so good luck. I'll be home around 6 o'clock, and you can tell me how it went. Will do. Be smart. I left, but not for work. I went to Vic's used car dealership. He only gave me £1,000 for the car. I was hoping for £1,200, but it didn't pan out. £1,000 would be better converted to dollars. Knowing Una would be with the Italians at least until lunch, I looked for a restaurant. No point in going for fast food. There's plenty of that in America. I stopped for an early lunch at a restaurant. I returned home around noon, stuffed the last of my items into a small backpack, and hid it in an empty closet. Our kitchen window faces a short alley leading to our fenced garden, and I risked cracking it open slightly. We had a large potted plant on the bar counter, which I moved to one end to block the view from the living room into the kitchen, where I hoped to hide. I unlocked the back door and set my phone to record video, then went back to the front window to keep watch. Una arrived at 2:30. As she got out of the car, a glimpse of legs in black flashed while she was unlocking the door. I managed to slip out through the back door. I stood on that crucial metal inspection hatch and peered through the kitchen window. I heard her cross the tiny hall just inches from me and enter the bathroom. The toilet was flushed, and I felt a slight vibration in the lid as water rushed beneath my feet. She returned and stood at the window where I had just been. I guessed who she was waiting for. She was no longer wearing tights. The Italians arrived, and she led them to the sofa. When she entered the kitchen, I pressed against the back door. Soon, I heard the pop of a wine bottle being opened. Did you leave through the underground parking? Yes, it was easy. The elevator went straight down there, and a taxi picked us up. Be sure to tell the taxi driver to drop you off there when you return. Will do. She brought them 3 glasses of wine on a tray. The men stood up to make a toast to fruitful relations, then sat down again. Una stood in front of them, and they all put down their glasses. It will be easier if I help you take off your trousers, gentlemen. They unbuckled their belts and began to pull them down. This was my moment. I didn't want to sneak in until I was sure they had started. When all 3 were engaged in sex, they began, and I quietly opened the back door and crept up to the plant. I positioned my phone around the pot and started recording. Maybe I didn't need these early shots with clothes being discarded, but I filmed anyway. If I got caught, I was prepared to face any consequences. When they finished, the guys were still lying side by side on the couch in just t-shirts, while Una was completely naked. Then she did something she had never done with me. To be honest, she had never needed to. I was proud of her. She took out some protection. Who's first? She asked. I thought they would finish with the usual front and back, but no. In the past, she had an STD and didn't want to repeat. They tried all positions and combinations. I knew Una was good at this. It's just that I had never watched it as a spectator before. Inevitably, they finished with a double. By this time, they were noisy, and I moved to the other end of the bar counter and zoomed in. It was quite explicit, wasn't it? When they left, I slipped back into the garden, waiting by the back wall near the bathroom window. 5 minutes later, I heard her. As soon as I heard the toilet flush and the shower running, I re-entered through the back door, ignoring Una's scattered lingerie. I managed to grab her phone. There, in her contacts, was the person I needed, listed under CEO, not Gavin. I called him from my own phone and convinced his secretary it was urgent. Is it true that you monitor your employees' morals? Who is this? Peter, the partner of your best salesperson, Una, or rather, her former partner. I remember you. Yes, that's correct. Then brace yourself to receive some video clips I just took. As soon as he received them, I briefly explained the situation and asked him to listen to the details about the Italian's escape from the hotel. Then I briefly explained what my special photograph taken earlier pertained to. Tell her not to come in tomorrow, he said. Sorry, pal, that's your job. Tell her yourself. I would suggest doing it face-to-face in front of her colleagues. I hung up the phone and sent my first outdoor photo to Una's phone. As I descended with my backpack, she entered the living room, wrapped in a bath towel. Her jaw dropped. What are you doing home, and where are you going? Close your mouth, Una, you look like a goldfish. To answer your questions, I came home for my backpack because I won't be here anymore. Today, I'll be spending the night at the same hotel where your Italian friends are staying, but when I get there, I'll use the front door, not the parking lot. Her mouth opened even wider. But why? What's happening? All the explanation you need is in the photo I just sent to your phone. I looked down at it lying on the sofa. Goodbye. I walked out the front door for the last time, whistling California. Here I come. Without a car, of course, I had to walk to the hotel. I didn't see the Italians that evening. I wondered if Una would appear to meet me, but she was nowhere to be seen. Quite understandable under the circumstances. The next morning, I headed to the airport. Una was facing a tough day. Work, bonuses, house rent, and the taxi. I smiled, taking one more look at the photo I had sent her. The open inspection hatch and the blockage right above the sewer. You could clearly see a lot of brown paper and half a dozen used protections. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.